Hi, I'm Josip, the host of the Network Podcast. I'm an ex-petroleum engineer, software developer, and security researcher. I founded Bura Security, a security shop that offers security auditing and advisory services with a special focus on cross-chain integrations and interoperability protocols. We've helped secure Layer 0, PancakeSwap, Centrifuge, Corn, and many other reputable projects in the space. If you're looking for security services, feel free to reach out through the contact that's in the description of this video. Hi, Jeffrey. It's a pleasure to have you on the Network Podcast, and thanks for taking your time to talk with me. How are you
thanks
doing,
for having
sir?
me on. I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, doing quite good. I actually been wanting to talk with you for a long time. I've been following your content at RareSkills, and it's really top-notch education for blockchain. And I also follow your personal Twitter. You have really good longer form posts. It really shows that you're speaking from experience. So really excited to have this talk.
Thank you.
In the first segment of the interview, I want to get to know you a bit better on a personal level and also dig into your background.
Sure.
Can you tell us what did you do before crypto and how did you eventually find your way into the blockchain industry?
Sure. So my background, I minored in computer science in undergrad. And then I did my graduate degree in computer science also. So I came from a very classically trained CS background where, you really get into even down to the level of the theory behind Turing machines and things like that. And I was doing research on some optimization problems and stuff around computational complexity. So the P versus NP is the most famous problem in the field of complexity theory. So that was my area of focus. And when I graduated, it's a pretty theoretical background and it's very hard to find a job doing that. So I just became a back-end engineer. So I worked at Yahoo and I was doing Node.js for the most part when I started off. So I started working professionally in 2015, which is roughly when Ethereum launched. So that should tell you, in the scheme of crypto, that's a very, very long time ago. So I did dabble in crypto a little bit around 2013, I believe. I came across the idea like, you can mine. So there was a Bitcoin back then, obviously, but there were these other alt networks which were CPU mineable, and I thought I'm a poor graduate student, why not give this a shot? I should have just spent what little money I had on Bitcoin back then. That would have really paid off a lot more. But I don't even know if Coinbase was around back then. It may have just launched or something like that. But I was exposed to blockchain, thought it was a cool thing, but never really considered it as a career. And I mean, back in my time, the ambition was always to get into a big tech company. So I would have liked to do research, but that's a pretty difficult job to do. So but I think that's even though I didn't really do crypto much, even though I was exposed to it, I wasn't really dabbling in it that closely. It did really set me up for the right background in terms of crypto nowadays, because it kind of struck me that I was working on formal verification before Ethereum existed, for example, and or stuff around the reasoning about virtual machines or cryptography, things of that nature. So and even stuff related to zero knowledge proofs, like how do you validate a computation? What does it even mean to validate a computation? That's fundamentally what ZK is. So that's something that I had spent a lot of time researching on. So very fortuitously, a lot of the pieces were aligning back then. So I worked in Yahoo for 2 years. For 2 years I was a back-end engineer, and then this was leading up to right before TensorFlow came out. So if people have heard of that. So roughly around that time, my direct manager was very prescient and realized, hey, we need to be focusing on machine learning because that's going to create some opportunities. And he was absolutely right. So That was
Yeah, good
that was
call.
good call. I was initially skeptical about it because it's funny. Before we know we have these neural nets which can kind of like magically tell you this image is a fish. That was so like wow. But back then, in order to know that an image was a fish, you had to do some very handcrafted rules to determine that you're looking at a fish, and or a dog or a flower or something like that. So that was the fact that you could uh, do it a lot more seamlessly without handcrafting the rules. That was a big deal. Now that had already happened around 2012, 2013, but around 2016 or so, the hardware was really starting to get to the point that you could do some interesting stuff. So, but it was still quite bad. So a lot of my focus was how can we get this machine learning to run in real time on video and do video recommendations? So the way I described my job to people, somewhat tongue in cheek, was, so you know what makes Instagram and TikTok creepy? That's what I work on. So it's trying to understand what the video is about, and then you can cluster it with other related videos and do better video recommendations. So that's I don't think it's particularly difficult to do video machine learning. Just doing it, the engineering behind it, you want to do it efficiently and not burn GPU cycles and things like that. So that's where the actual challenge was. And so I did that up until 2021. Then I quit Yahoo and I moved to Asia. So my significant other doesn't want to move to America. So that's how I ended up in Asia. And there weren't any real opportunities with machine learning. And I could see when people were, a lot of what was called digitization. So I live in Indonesia most of the time. And what a lot of is called quote unquote digitization there is moving from pencil and paper to maybe Excel or something like that. So in that kind of an environment, machine learning is very overkill. So probably even counterproductive. So there weren't, so I just kind of was wandering around, not just trying out different business ideas, definitely talking to a lot of startups, but some people wanted my help on a crypto project. And okay, sure, why not? So I tried it. And this was during the NFT time when the gas prices were ridiculous. So that the project never really took off. We never actually launched it. But I had to spend a lot of time working on gas optimization, because if it costs $100 to just mint something, then that's pretty crazy, right? So that obviously I was a bit bummed out that, okay, well, we were going to have this NFT game and it was really cool and stuff like that, but this was roughly around the time of when the Ukraine-Russia war started, so asset prices were starting to fall, and if we figured we'd launch, then the value of all the assets would just crash because everything's crashing. So canceled the launch, but I took all of my learnings from the gas optimization stuff and then turned it into a course on Udemy. And that, and on top of that, I had been writing on Medium about, hey, here's how you can do gas optimization stuff. This was not well documented back in the day. And the Udemy course instantly became a bestseller, like within 2 weeks or something like that. And the Medium articles were also doing extremely well. Like, I think one of the classics is it more gas efficient to use a Merkle tree or digital signatures for a whitelist thing? So that that thing actually ended up influencing how the Cool Cats NFT launched their following series, which I thought was really cool. So you can actually see a link to the Medium article inside of their Etherscan verified source code. So that was kind of how I realized, like, okay, well, there's actually some maybe education in crypto is something that could work for me, because it's not normal to be that successful that quickly. Obviously, there's luck involved, let's not kid ourselves. But still, the fact that the success came easier than I thought it would, that kind of signaled to me maybe I should lean more into the education side. I didn't really fully commit to it. Back then, I was also doing a version of what we now call private audits. So people had seen my writing, and I said, hey, Jeffrey, this is cool. Can you read our source code? Because, well, if we hire one of these traditional firms, it's way too expensive. So
what year is this? This is 2021?
Yeah, this would have been 2022 by now. Could have been 2021, 2022, something like that. Probably both. And I think it was 21 when we had to cancel the project. So this would have been 2021, 2022. So So I was doing some of that as a, just random ways to make money. But when people were asking for, advice on the project and, hey, help reason me through the source code, it's really fun to just try to get people up to speed very fast. If you can explain it properly, it's amazing the amount of time that you can save. So that, that's how I decided education was the way to go.
Cool. It's a long, it's a long journey, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
But from what I'm hearing, you had a very strong kind of academic background in some of the foundational topics,
mm-hmm.
and you were always interested in new technologies since
mm-hmm.
From your early days you dabbled into Bitcoin, checked Ethereum, but then on the other hand, in your formal line of work, you switched to this machine learning, which was probably very hot at that point.
And it's still hot nowadays. So
yeah, still very hot.
Mm-hmm.
I want to zoom into one particular point.
Mm-hmm.
So, from what you're saying, you had a very successful career at Yahoo,
mm-hmm.
and you're part of a very growing field. Obviously, 2017 AI was hot, but wasn't as hot as today.
Mm-hmm.
Then at one point you just decide, let's pack my stuff up, go to Asia, and start something completely new.
Mm-hmm.
And then you kind of had this exploration phase from what you were saying to eventually end up in education, since you're probably seeing a good match between your skills and also what interests you.
Mm-hmm.
Can you give some advice to people who might be in a similar position? They're somewhere in a company, they're feeling cozy, but they want to perhaps go into something new or change their location of living. Can you take us to this point in your career?
For sure. I would say if I lived in New York City at the back when I was working at Yahoo, so I would not have been able to work for myself. The expenses are too high.
Mm-hmm.
So having a good chunk of money saved and living in Indonesia is not expensive. So there's a lot of, it sucks to eat through your savings account, right? And I'm not going to lie, that's painful. But at the same time, what's the worst that's going to happen? It's, I'll spend some more money this month. The money will still be there. I'm not going to starve. I just have a smaller number to look at when I log into the bank account. It's not the end of the world. So that would be the most important thing. You need to give yourself room to take risks, and but I don't want it to sound like I planned all of that. I didn't decide, okay, I'm bored of the deciding factor for me to move from America to Asia was because my now wife doesn't want to live in the U.S. So that wasn't, well, if I plan my expenses properly and whatever, I was not forecasting anything like that. In retrospect, it looks like I was planning things out very well, but I was in reality just wondering what the heck was going to happen next most of the time. So and then just trying things. That's probably the most important thing. And I think this is very hard to come from, when you come from a very technical background, is you want to apply your reasoning powers, which can normally break smart contracts, and then apply it to the real world. And that's a mistake, because business and uncertainty are the same thing. You just have to learn how to make best friends with uncertainty and say, I don't know where my next customer is going to come from. I don't know if my business is actually sustainable. I don't know if the success we're experiencing right now is because of a temporary fad. I don't know if someone who has my background, but even better, is just going to appear and then start competing with me. You can't know those things, and you can't know what people are going to buy. And sometimes people themselves don't even know what they're going to buy. So something I really had to unlearn was trying to forecast things and plan ahead and things like that. It's just, no, you just got to try things and put yourself out there and let reality give you honest feedback. And then it gives you noisy feedback, but listen through the noise, figure out what works, and try things. That's probably my number one thing. You try things eventually you get lucky. So give yourself time to be lucky.
Yeah, definitely. Running a business is full of uncertainty, and if you're just coming from working at some company there, you're getting babysit kind of all the time. You have a list of tasks you need to do. You have the HR department, you have the sales department, you have all of these structures built around you, which is non-existent if you're trying to grow a business. So it's definitely a different type of mindset. I just want to return to one more point, and this is perhaps a bit uncomfortable question, but do you ever have regrets of not sticking with AI? And we already mentioned that you would have, by this point, you would have more than 10 years of maybe you would be one of those employees that Mark Zuckerberg is trying to poach.
Yep. Yes. The answer is yes, but it's not. But do I think it was a catastrophic decision? I don't think so. In the sense, like, one thing I don't like about working in AI is it's a very empirical field of study. Okay, so how do you get your model to perform better? Well, you can reason about it, right? There's definitely some analysis that you can do and then tweak things, but the bulk of it is running experiments on an educated hunch. That's most of the time what you're doing in machine learning, and also optimizing data pipelines. So I used to compete in machine learning contests when I on my side hours, and that's very much about just how much CPU cycles can you burn. Like in a contest, I could easily spend $1,000 of my own money spent on cloud GPUs. So that doesn't mean you can't be smart about it and there's ways to save money, right? But it fundamentally comes down to how much money can you burn. That really determines. That's one reason why the big labs stay ahead. And that doesn't really feel that satisfying intellectually. Just, okay, sure, I discovered a result, but that's because I had the privilege of having a bunch of GPUs at my disposal, which, I mean, not to discredit, you can't just run random experiments and discover things. That's not true. But a big part of it is just semi-random discovery, which I don't particularly enjoy. So whereas in blockchain, you can really reason about things from first principles. Like theory and practice are actually not far from each other. You have distributed systems, you have cryptographies, you have virtual machine, you have compilers. All of the stuff works the way that you expect it to. So being an individual, someone working on their own without a big budget can really accomplish a lot. So that's, people were using some of my writings for how to write more gas efficient contracts back in the early days. So that was really cool. I don't think I could have had that level of impact in AI, just because it's a much bigger field with very, very smart and well-resourced people. So I did do some things. I don't want to discount that, but it definitely feels like a smaller drop in a bigger bucket in AI. The only thing that really frustrated me is that our Web3 is a very scammy industry. So now I think it's really nice being in our circle where we're somewhat isolated from that and we don't have to participate in that nonsense in order for our businesses to run. But at a certain point, it gets like when people are shooting themselves on live stream for attention, then it's like, okay, this industry is not a serious industry. It's the opposite of serious. Now, there's some scammy stuff that happens in Web2 VCs too. Like, I'm not going to, and certainly Wall Street, right? And biotech, like people definitely do some shady stuff. So, let's not say that we have a monopoly on all the bad stuff, but not too long ago, it was extremely bad in Web3, like hilariously bad. I think at that point, that's when I kind of regretted switching. So thankfully, I think that it seems like the worst excesses of the behaviors have kind of died down a little bit, but you still see some like, wow, behavior in Web3 just somehow manages to find new lows all the time. So, because it's such an attention game for all of this stuff. So that part I really don't like. But tech-wise, I like the fact that you can reason from first principles in blockchain, and I think that's definitely more fun than working in AI. Did I lose out monetarily making the trade? Probably, but my life's comfortable. Like And I still have a lot of years left, so there's no need to freak out about it right now.
Yeah. So you do have some regrets that you're not being poached by Mark Zuckerberg.
I don't think I would never be. I would never be a $50 million employee, but having a huge head start in the industry and having some things under my belt, that definitely could have led places. Probably not 50 million, but pretty good.
Yeah.
Or 100 million or whatever he's paying. That's yeah.
Yeah. The news that got to the headlines are $1 billion, but this is probably just a few.
No, that would never have been me. I'm not that good of a machine learning researcher or engineer. Yeah. But it does show like the upside is way higher in that field, right? So if the cap is 1 billion, then it's not at all uncommon for a very senior engineer in a FANG company to make $1 million a year. That's not rare at all, especially if you're good at machine learning, and it can go to multiple $1 million. So, that's what I argue that financially that's not a good trade. But how much could I have done that from Asia? I had also decided to move to Asia. Silicon Valley is not here, so I would have to move back. So is it really that? Is it really a trade that I? In the whole factor of all the things that were important to me, then it's not as bad a trade as it looks. So, yeah.
Yeah. You mentioned Web3 is a scammy industry. Why do you have such a big problem with this? Like, you don't want to be associated with such an industry, or why is this such a big problem for you?
Let's think about it this way. Like, realistically, AI is solving more real problems than blockchain is right now. I don't think anyone can dispute that. Like, we're really chasing blockchain does actually solve important problems, because some of the people who work for me live in countries where the banks are extremely unreliable and dishonest. So being able to do cross-border stablecoin payments it really makes the world a better place. So it is cool to be working on that. But stablecoins are mostly a solved problem, right? They don't require much more technical breakthrough in order to be used. So a lot of the quote-unquote problems that we're solving are not problems. Like, okay, cool, we can yap on Twitter and get points for it. How's that making the world a better place? That's I don't. You only have one life, I want to look back and think like, okay, I did more than just chase a trend where I thought I could make a lot of money in the short term. So that's and like they're like, especially like with Pump.Fun, there's been some very disgusting behavior to get attention. So that's now, admittedly, like, the bad apples really rise to the top and become visible. That doesn't describe if people want to gamble, that there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And I think that enabling freedom on blockchain is a good thing, and people should have a choice. But but giving people a better casino is not something I'm very engaged by. And I think in general, how do you get smart people working on hard problems is they need to find the problems that they're working out on meaningful. That's how Elon Musk is able to attract so many talented people. Hey, I'm going to go to space. I'm going to prevent global warming. I'm going to speed up transportation between places. That's what really gets people to work at 900%. And smart people who have a lot of opportunities. So I think if we can solve some of the scammy problem in blockchain, we'll attract some more people like that who are solving other problems. And say like, okay, well, the blockchain thing doesn't really inspire me that much beyond, except some people who are really concerned about privacy get inspired by it, which is nice. But you want to really have a meaningful problem if you want to attract the most talented people, because at the end of the day, they can get money wherever they're going to go. So they're going to go off of whether they find the problem to be meaningful or not.
Mm-hmm. So you do think that industries get advancement just by literally having a handful of people that are really good, that are passionate about something, that find the problem meaningful to solve.
Mm-hmm. Now, the Pareto principle, or the power law, or however you want to describe it, is very real. Almost all of the impact is going to happen because of a tiny minority of people. So if you want an industry to move forward, those are the sort of people you need to attract. So that's I mean, like, think about like even how our industry works. There's a few people who are solving extremely hard problems. Like, hey, we can make a privacy blockchain now. We can do ZK in a fast way, and then that's done by maybe a few hundred people, and then the other thousands are just building on top of it, right? But it's because of a few smart people who are unlocking things that really create a few very talented, motivated people who are working on hard problems and unlocking new design spaces and new possibilities. That's what really moves things forward. It's not people repeating relatively templated projects.
Mm-hmm. I would actually draw like draw a comparison with what Jocelyn from Trail of Bits told me. He was also on the Network podcast last week, and we were discussing on whether the right way to attract security researchers is sharing how much money you've earned on Twitter, which undoubtedly attracted a lot of people into the space. And Jocelyn was also arguing that it doesn't attract the right people. It doesn't attract the people that will stay there and advance the industry to the next level, which is, an interesting observation. I think most people would think that you just need to attract a bunch of people, and then you're just going to have a few that will push forward. But maybe if you're attracting them with, how much money you can earn, then maybe you won't attract anyone who's actually passionate about it and who wants to push forward.
Yeah, I would generally agree with that. I mean, I know some very good auditors who initially came for the money and then discovered, hey, I actually like this. So I wouldn't, I wouldn't say we shouldn't share how much people can earn on Twitter, but at least in my, like with RareSkills, I really try to stay very far away from promising some kind of financial advantage for participating in it, because it definitely attracts the wrong people. So in our messaging, we actually try to say the opposite thing. Who knows what's going to happen in your future? The number one thing that's going to drive your career success is who you know, not what you've been trained on. So we can help you learn faster. There's no question about that. But what's the outcome going to be? This is hardly the most important thing in what's going to determine your career. So, and that actually attracts the best people, right? So, I mean, the alumni is on our page. I'll spare the bragging, but some very, very important people are RareSkills alumni. Some of the people who have won very significant contests and are on top of leaderboards, and researchers at very significant blockchain companies. And if we had a messaging of, come to RareSkills and make more money, I don't think they would have found that appealing. So what Jocelyn is saying makes sense. If it's to do this, make more money, then it's the same reason airdrops don't work, right? It just attracts people for the short term, and when I realize, actually making money is hard, just like it always is. It's just that the upside's higher, then they get turned away, and the attention you're getting is not actually a valuable attention.
Yeah, right. I guess there's also a mixture of both. In case of RareSkills, it's obvious, but in case of a broader niche within an industry, but you have to have both, right?
You do have to have both. I mean, Bashov talked about money on Twitter, and he attracted. There's a lot of very smart people who came into the space because of him. So, but he also does it in a very tasteful way, right? It's not, hey, if you come into blockchain, lots of exclamation points, emojis, money, dollars, things like that. He's just sharing his experiences honestly, right? Hey, this is what I did this month. This is how much I earned, and then people can read that and then make their own decisions. So I don't think sharing about how much money you could make in Web3 is wrong, but it needs to be framed in a good way.
Right. That's a good point. He was straightforward. He was honest. At least I hope. I haven't checked his bank account or something, but I
believe
did.
It. So, yeah.
I also believe him. Okay, let's just step a bit back. When you were talking about your background, you said you released this course on Udemy about gas optimizations, and this kind of went viral. It was a great course. Can you then kind of take us back to how you actually started RareSkills
Sure.
and how did it evolve throughout the years?
Yeah, I started it with another person, and we thought we'd try running a coding boot camp because it's an established business model. But we had founder disagreements, so we split up. So the company actually started when I put the course together, and I know that people are willing to work with me in order to learn faster. And thankfully, by that point, I already had a Twitter audience. So I started the RareSkills account, and then I started, because gas optimization was something that I understood very well, then I started putting these puzzles. So nowadays it's not, I like to think I can take credit for this whole trend of like spot the bug challenges on Twitter. What we did is, well, here's a contract. How much can you gas optimize it and still pass the unit tests? So that was a very unusual kind of a Twitter campaign, and it got a huge amount of attention, and the influencer devs were all talking about it. So that, and then of course on the bio of the Twitter thing, it leads to RareSkills, and people could see the course. So because we charged something like $5,000 or $6,000 for it back then, so it only needed a small number of people in order to make it a usable business. And so a small number of people would take it, and also some people had made a huge amount of money on crypto, so that amount of money was not significant to them. And so that's how it kicked off. It was initially going well until FTX happened, and then everybody tightened their belts, and I thought, okay, well, I guess this business is over. But then things recovered, and I realized, okay, well, every month is going to be different. So we were doing Solidity for a while, and I had mentioned to some people, hey, maybe we should do ZK. And people were like, yes, please do ZK, please do ZK. But I wasn't like I was really dreading putting a ZK course together because it's just so hard to explain that. But I was like, okay, I'm just going to sit down, and for the next 4 months, I'm going to do nothing except teach classes and try to make the ZK course work. And that's how we ended up with the ZK book and the ZK bootcamp. And I would say it's at that point that RareSkills kind of became what it is, because people saw like, wow, normally ZK was called Moon Math, and if you thought you had to have a degree to understand it, but we actually broke it down so that people were creating provers and verifiers from scratch, which was completely unthinkable in 2022. And I like to think that we've led to more people creating provers and verifiers from scratch than any other resource, and at least in terms of the GitHubs that I've counted up. So that's really cool. Like we showed that we were able to solve a hard problem, and that's when we started to attract, like the first time people from like Open Zeppelin or Ethereum Foundation were starting to come to our school to learn. I was like, wow, this is like, I back in 2021, I like idolized these people. So, and now they're coming to me. So that was, what I think sometime in 2003 or something like that. So that's when I think I really, I really found the work to be meaningful and felt like I was making a difference. Like, okay, teaching Solidity is cool, but like, if you can learn it by doing the documentation and fooling around long enough, but ZK is hard to learn, and it's a tech that is actually really, really meaningful and going to solve problems, especially all the data breaches that we have, and it's going to allow for Ethereum to scale significantly, and it's genuinely useful and does a lot of good. So being a really key contributor to moving that forward. That was, I think, when I was kind of unsure about okay, all right, cool, we'll run some kind of a coding bootcamp to like, okay, wow, we're actually helping the industry in a meaningful way and solving a problem that really needs to be solved. So that's so RareSkills technically started in 2022, but I think it's 2023 when RareSkills actually became RareSkills, and that's what still keeps me excited about it, and a big reason why I don't want to switch to another industry, even though there's some things that annoy me about Web3. As long as I can stay distant away from all the stuff I don't like. being able to contribute to ZK through education, which is, something not many people, it takes such a huge amount of effort to do that like a full-time engineer won't be able to spare their time, and you need to have had a lot of practice explaining things in order to tackle something like that. So being in a unique position to do that is very cool.
Right. So the problem that you're actually solving with RareSkills is getting a top, S-tier engineer to the next level, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So kind of filling the gaps with some of the fundamentals. Would you say that's kind of the idea behind RareSkills, or with time you want to make content that is targeting the masses, targeting your average developer? Do you have like a clear direction, clear kind of business path?
Yes.
Or
RareCode is the Rust platform that we launched is intended to broadly appeal. So if you want to learn Rust, rarecode.ai, plug. But I do think the approach of, hey, just write a lot of code. Okay, well, what should I write? Well, we'll tell you what to write. We'll give you a unit test for it, and we'll give you an AI on the side in case you get stuck, because the compiler issues can be scary. And then we'll craft the problems to make sure that you're not dealing with foreign compiler issues you have no idea what to deal with. We'll say, hey, this is a compiler issue. Here's a buggy code. Now fix it. Okay, cool. Now write it from scratch. And you were likely to run into that compiler issue while you're writing it from scratch, but you're anticipating it at this point, so you know how to get through it. And then it's much more manageable to tangle with the compiler that way and actually learn the rules of Rust. So that's intent. And I think the approach of just write a lot of code, man. I think people really underestimate that when it comes to learning something. Like with audits, how do you get good at audits? Just do a lot of them. Right. So, obviously there's more to it than that. Right. But fundamentally, volume is going to be correlated with your success. I'm not discounting that you should work smart too. But if you're working smart for a limited amount of time, someone who's not working as smart but putting a lot more time in is going to do better. So we want to help people just make it easy to put the time in. So that's the idea behind RareCode. And the RareSkills is I definitely want it to be focused on hard problems, like how can we make these ZK VMs or ZK algorithms understandable? Because later on, auditors are going to have to audit them. That's kind of the number one thing that I have in mind right now. I don't need to teach ZK developers how to develop ZK, right? But auditors have a lot of choices, and they have a switching cost when they move between stacks. So if they and if someone smart who's passionate about the subject is considering moving into ZK, then if it's very high barrier to get over, then they might not do it at all. So if we can lower the barrier a little bit and get them into this field, which really matters, then that's then I think that contributes something meaningful, and that's what I want RareSkills to be primarily focused on. But it's not limited to ZK. I think we try to give intuitive explanations for very difficult subjects like Uniswap v3. That's a tough thing to explain. So coming up with, hey, how can we rethink how to explain this from first principles to make it more understandable? So that's how we came up with the interactive tools to really visualize what this concentrated liquidity look like and how does it actually affects things. So those are, now the number of people who are going to read it is not that big, but that doesn't bother me because I think it's those few people who are going to be driving the impact in the space. And so I want to make their lives easier. And if I can save those very impactful people, 3 hours in their day, that actually consistently, that's going to make a difference in the long run.
Right. So your business is kind of educational startup. Let's
yeah, we definitely fall into that category. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, educational startup, which does seem hard to scale. Also quite hard to monetize.
Uh-huh.
How are you ever looking at other educational startups, maybe even in some other industries, and how do they kind of manage to scale the business?
Oh yeah, I'm keenly aware that this is a bad industry to be in. I think if I didn't have the very, I've been writing, like I was publishing in magazines when I was about technical magazines since I was like 16 years old. So I have a lot of experience with technical writing, and I think without that, big advantage, it just wouldn't be viable. You need some kind of some very significant tailwind if you want to have a viable education business. If that's without it, it's just better to work in other industries which are more profitable. I did send that tweet saying that I think fundamentally the way education is done in general could be done a lot better. I do want to tackle bigger and harder problems, like even the way. Okay, so when I moved to Asia, for example, I had to learn a new language, Indonesian. And what I wondered is, like, I tried a bunch of lessons and a bunch of stuff. Like, why the most logical way to learn the language is learn the most common. Like, some words are used very, very frequently, like the, and, left, right, up, down, things like that. So you need to really know. You should be focusing on those words, not talking about like, is your arm feeling okay? Like, I don't actually know the word for triceps in Indonesian, for example, and I've never had to use that word. So why would you learn that in the first 3 months of learning? Why would you learn that in the first 3 months of the language? So what you should be doing is focusing on the most frequent stuff, and then learning them in combination with each other. So putting words on flashcards and then doing spaced repetition is cool, but why isn't there like an app that takes the most common words and then uses an AI to create sentences out of it? And then you have to translate that, because it knows in advance that you know all of the words in that sentence. And so it should be something that's appropriate for your level of skill. But that general approach of let's start with the core things and then slowly work our way out. So that's how we structure all of our stuff at RareSkills. I'm just kind of shocked that, like, why do we not do this with a whole bunch of other things? Because it's so inefficient to do it other ways, right? Let's just go through things categorically just because we have to hit a bunch of points. So that's just so that the curriculum looks good and seems to appease some supervisor, but it's not actually effective. So I do think that there is really big room for doing a lot better in education. And I think out of all the things out there, AI is, we worry if like, is education going to disrupt software engineers or doctors or something like that? No, the first thing that's going to get disrupted is education. Why? Because everyone uses AI to learn things nowadays. So that's why RareCode.ai uses AI. We just, we're good at writing, but we're not going to try to write. Give them minimal information. Then people, when they're wondering about things, will ask the AI the question. And since the AI has a lot of training data on Rust, then it can answer the question very accurately. So I think having an AI for a tutor with a structure where you're focusing on the core aspects of the subject and then slowly working your way out, that is just so much better way to learn than other ways that it is plausible that, there's a lot of institutional momentum around how schools work, but when people start using a technique that's 5 times better or 10 times better, that's when a disruption happens. And I do think that AI-driven learning that's based on sensible curriculum progression is 10 times better than the way that we do it now, right? This is something I really had learned the hard way in RareSkills in the early days. So what do I do as a naive person who came from college? I'm just going to copy what college does. I give a lecture and then I give homeworks. But by the time they get to the homeworks, they've already forgotten the lecture. And then like, hey guys, what do you remember from last week? They're struggling to recall it. I'm like, did we just waste that last hour? That's last week. That's really sad. I can't keep doing this. How should I do it differently? So I changed the lectures to I'm going to ask you guys questions the whole time. You're actually going to do as much talking as me. But I'm going to try to ask a question at the edge of your knowledge so that it pushes you out a little bit. I don't want to ask you a question that's too easy or too hard. So that's kind of what also taught me, like, questions-driven learning is better than just yapping at somebody. And the questions need to be at that person's level so that they're making steady progress and not overwhelmed or bored. So, but with a human doing it, that's how we do our lectures at RareSkills. But with a human doing it, that's not scalable. But I think an AI could approximate that pretty darn well if it's talking about something that it knows about. So not like zero knowledge proofs or security. It's going to make up a bunch of nonsense. But for something like Rust, it definitely knows about it. So I think that approach is just so much better because I can see like the outcomes different from the way I used to do things in RareSkills versus how I do them now. It's very clear that the way you do education actually matters quite a bit. Obviously the motivation of the student matters a lot, but the structure of the education and the education strategy is really important, and the default way of doing it is very bad.
Right. In one of the announcements of RareCode, I really like the sentence you were saying, learning comes from practicing, like writing code or, writing or whatever you're doing, you need to practice. but the AI is the part that gives you explanations, as you've just described. So it's it's like a mentor. You can ask it anything.
The next thing is like, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to say the problem I'm seeing is that I'm mentoring for example, I'm mentoring one junior researcher, and his every second word is AI. He uses AI for everything. So he replaced the practice with AI. Basically, everything is AI. So, for instance, if he's auditing a contract, he'll use AI to generate tests, use AI for explanations, and then he'll even jump into trying to get AI to immediately give him some vulnerabilities, and it's shortening the attention span. So
it is. Yeah.
You cannot sit for 1 hour and think about a problem, because there is always some solution that the AI can give. So this is something that we're going to have to tackle. Yeah,
for sure. No, so one thing we were careful to do it with RareCode AI is we don't give autocompletes in there. So we want to use the AI for if they have a question, like for some not every programmer coming into our field knows what a set is, for example. But in Rust, you want to know what a set is. So rather than giving them a long lecture about a set, what I do is say, hey, this is a set, but if you don't know, ask the AI. It'll tell you all the missing parts that you need to know, for example. So I think using it for an explanation, when you're looking for an explanation, you just want something that's written well, right? And the AI can do that good enough for entry-level subjects. And then the AI can check your work. It can give you feedback, oh, this is not actually idiomatic code. Now, somebody could just copy and paste the problem into ChatGPT and say, hey, solve it for me. But at that point, there's nothing we can do about it. But we definitely want to have the UX kind of nudge people towards not doing that and say, hey, use the AI for explanations and for checking your work, not for doing it for you, or for making sure that you don't get stuck on a difficult compilation issue for too long. But yeah, I am concerned that everybody using AI are not able to write on their own and have their own thoughts. That is very... that is concerning, and people might think like, oh, what do I even need to go to school for if the AI can do everything? I think that's a very dangerous train of thought. With AI, you want to know as many things as possible, so that this ultra intelligent thing can dump smart ideas into your head as fast as possible. So you need to have a vocabulary that goes across multiple disciplines and understand them deeply. So, like, let's say the AI discovered a novel math proof, and then just by pure accident on your computer. Well, you're not going to be able to publish that and become a famous author if you can't understand it, right? But let's say that you happen to know that, oh, this actually checks out, and the AI just very luckily gave me a good answer to it. Now I'm going to publish it, and my name's attached to this great breakthrough. You're not going to be able to have that opportunity unless you actually know your stuff. So I think education is far more important nowadays with AI than it used to be, not the other way around.
Right. I'm just afraid that the traditional school system is not going to adjust.
The traditional school system is already getting broken by AI. That UCLA guy who went viral, like, look, ChatGPT did all of my work. I mean, we know that ChatGPT can do all the work of an undergrad, right? I think AI is already breaking education as it is. And with some luck, it will, because college is very broken. It's expensive. A lot of people are not actually doing their work. They just need it for the name. At some point, the dam will break, and there might be a very, very big change in education. And if that happens, then I'll be very glad that I work in education, because I think I'll be able to jump on that train if the opportunity comes. But, who knows what will actually happen. But the AI will disrupt education before it disrupts software or doctors.
Right.
That's my prediction.
Right.
Saying that definitely. As an educator, right? AI will take my job, which is fine. I'll just try to adjust to it. That's why RareCode AI is AI focused.
Yeah. But even it's not only college, it's even elementary school and high school. Mm-hmm. You don't need to write your homework. You don't need to do anything, right? You can just ask AI to do everything. So only kind of oral examination. Okay, also exams will still continue to be relevant, but homework that isn't.
Yeah, I think that they'll have to do their homework on school premises just to. How else do you know that they're actually doing it, right? And then, like, it's kind of a sociologically unfair, like, okay, we figure out who the most disciplined kids are to do their homeworks, right? So, but if you have a parent who beats you up for not doing your homework, that puts you at an advantage, right? we don't. So, but the point of school is to educate people, not to separate people into classes, right? Of like, oh, these people do really well and these people do very poorly. So I think leaving that, foisting the difficulty of really sitting down and doing your homework onto the family is, and the kid themselves. I think school is that they're kind of doing a disservice. Hey, you're paying the school; they should help you with that too. That's my thoughts on that.
Right. Okay, let's touch upon a slightly different topic, and that is writing.
Oh, I love this topic.
You write a lot. You have great tweets. Obviously, you write technical content. We just mentioned that in order to improve in something, you need to practice a lot. What are some other tips in improving as a writer? Some people have so compelling tweets. They really know how to articulate themselves. They know how to bring the emotion in their readers, right? And others can do this. What's your advice?
Okay, so first of all, set the expectation that it takes a very long time to develop the skill. Like I said, I've been writing for a very long time. I've been writing longer than some of the people listening to this podcast have been alive. So, first of all, I think that's the most important thing. If you're lucky to work with someone who can give you feedback, you're mentoring someone on security right now, so you can see how much faster the process is for him learning with you versus without you. I mean, writing is no different, right? If you're able to work with someone who can say, hey, I honestly find this boring, or this doesn't make sense, or maybe if you did this, then it would have resonated more on an emotional level. So I think that's important. But the second, the other, I guess if I'm going to try to give non-obvious advice here, but let me first of all stress it. Volume and feedback are the two most important things in writing. So if you get those two right, you're pretty much on track. Now, just to make this conversation interesting, I'll try to talk about the more rare tips. But don't get it confused. Those two things are the most important. The reason why AI writing sucks is because it doesn't reflect the thought process of a human actually understanding the subject. So you need to understand what is the thought process of my reader? What are their emotions in the first place? Because, this writing really triggered my emotions in a good way. Well, that's because most of our emotions are generally similar to each other, especially if we come from a similar culture and we speak the same language. We all have the same experiences. We all are subject to the same Bitcoin price moving up and down. So we already can have a pretty good sense of what our peers are feeling. Now, how can we tap into that, right? And there's actually not that many levers to tap into somebody's emotions because there's only a few things that they care about in the first place. And then most people have fairly predictable opinions about most subjects. And then, so if you make your writing trying to hit on those points, then it's going to be naturally more engaging. So, like, for example, let's say I want to create a tweet. What do I know about the audience in, like, the crypto Twitter sphere that we're in, especially with security? Well, I know a lot of people feel like, man, I've been putting in a lot of work, but I'm not getting the results of this other guy. Every time I log into Twitter, I see somebody else winning, but that doesn't seem to be happening to me. I'm not focusing hard enough. Like, I really feel like I could be I spent 3 hours today when I know I could have been doing 4 if I wasn't checking Twitter or getting distracted with some other things. What else do I know about someone reading this? I'm nervous about how fast-moving our industry is because things change very fast, right? It was NFTs, then it was DeFi, then it was Intense, then it was crypto AI, then it was whatever. So if you sit and think about it, you can kind of get a good sense of it just by reading the timeline, because if a tweet's getting a lot of engagement, then it tapped into an emotion that's there. So you can just read those and see, okay, these are kind of like what people care about at this moment. Now, how can I speak to that in a genuine and useful way? Right now, if you want to be, you can. Now we have rage bait and bait in general, where you can appeal to those emotions and not be useful, right? So that will still lead to engagement. But if you actually want to be, if someone's occasionally trolling, there's nothing wrong with that. That's actually funny. But if you want to, in the long term, actually be helpful to people, then okay, this is where I know people are coming from. Now, what experiences do I have that's actually useful to this person in this context? And then write to that. And then the nice thing about that is, as long as your message gets across, then then it will be helpful even if your writing is not super polished. Like for example, like my tweet on quantum computers went really, really viral because everyone was like, "Oh my gosh, is the world about to change?" I don't think my writing was actually that good. Like it was definitely fine, but like by RareSkills standards, it was not explaining things that clearly. But it explained things clearly enough, and it was timely enough that it tapped into an emotion that, even though the message was a little muddy, it was relevant to people, and enough signal got through that people found it helpful. So you don't have. So if you, in a very extreme case, like if you're able to at least convey enough information that's extremely important to somebody, whether on an emotional level or a financial level or whatever, then they're going to consider your writing to be good because they got the point. So being a good writer in that sense means just not sucking, which is not difficult to get to. Now, of course, it's easier if you're articulate about things. Then you can make things that seem more mundane more interesting, because then you're able to know how to tap into what their emotions are and how can I make something that normally seems not interesting. That's where good writing skills come from. But if you have a useful experience for something that people care about, then you don't actually have to be that good of a writer to be useful.
You mentioned one way of being a good writer is just speaking from your personal experience, which means that you actually have to do stuff. And the other way is being articulate, which means you need to understand people's emotions.
Mm-hmm.
How to gain this second skill, since you're kind of limited in the amount of experience that you can gather, right? Mm-hmm. If you're really a risk taker, perhaps you're going to have a lot of experiences. You're going to move places. You're going to try to do public speaking. You're trying to build something novel, and then you'll gather a lot of experience. But most people don't fit into this category. So what advice would you give for someone to be more articulate?
To train yourself to, okay, aside from just writing a lot, right? Again, the volume is the most important thing. But aside from just writing, one thing you can do is try to articulate things that you already know very well, and then see, am I actually conveying the idea that's inside of my head? Like, for example, let's work on a simple exercise. How would you define abstraction? We all know what abstraction means. We use it all the time, right? But now let me try to actually put that into words and describe it to someone who hasn't heard that word before. So the nice thing is with that, you're coming into it knowing what the correct answer is already, right? So you can get very fast feedback if you did it well or not. And but then you can realize, like, wow, this is actually challenging. This is something I understand intuitively, but it's something that I have a hard time translating my intuition into words. And that's fundamentally what being articulate is. You can turn in the nonverbal thought processes in your head into a verbal process. So do that. I think if somebody spent 10 minutes a day, hey, I'm going to pick a random word in the dictionary and then try to define it. That will, without, and then I can look at the dictionary and compare my answer. If you do that enough times, you'll actually come up with better definitions than the dictionary. Then you can, let's take it up a notch. Let's pick two synonyms and then try to describe how they're different. Like, what's the difference between generalization and abstraction? Those are things that, okay, we use those in the same context sometimes, but sometimes we don't. Now, intuitively, we know that, right? Like, abstraction has a tendency to be used in like mathematical and engineering fields, whereas generalization has a tendency to be used in like social science fields or something like that. Okay, so that's one dimension of it. But how can I succinctly describe what are the similarities and differences between these two words? And the nice thing about that is you can, getting fast feedback is how you learn fast, right? But you can look at it and give yourself feedback. Like, this doesn't look right. I know the answer, but even though I can't say the answer, I know the answer. Like, we can look at artwork and say like, oh, this is good artwork. I can't say why, but it is good artwork, right? So the intuition is there. But now, can you articulate why it's good artwork? That's actually really, that's actually really hard. But if you try to, then you can learn, you can get feedback like, oh, I actually think I actually captured my thought process. This is actually what I'm thinking, or no, this is not what I'm actually thinking. So I would say just in terms of like, if you want to have like drills, if someone does an exercise like that for 10 minutes a day, you will notice difference after 3 months.
Mm-hmm. Right. So you need to understand these shades between words and probably also expand your vocabulary.
Yeah, I mean, the important thing is that if you're writing about something you don't know what you're talking about, right, then you don't know if your writing is any good or not, right? Because you might just be saying nonsense. But if you're talking about something that you already know, which is the definition of a word, then you know if you're right or wrong. So knowing if you're right or wrong is how you get feedback, right? So that's I think that's very important. Like if you just try, you could try. Oh, I'm just going to try writing about stuff that I'm learning, but you don't actually know if your writing is good or not. It just looks more like notes that you're taking along the way as you're gathering information.
Mm-hmm. One advice I'm personally following when I'm writing is I'm trying to write to my old self, right? Even if, let's say, experience gathering process wasn't that quick, you're still progressing throughout the years. You're learning something each day. So you're not writing to this no-name person, but you're writing to your old self, which is also kind of a mental hack.
Yes, I think that's a good hack.
Yeah.
I mean, I think to be a good writer, you need to be able to write to someone other than yourself. But if you can't write to yourself, then you can't write to anybody. So you definitely need to have that down. And there's a lot of people who are in a similar situation to your past self. So it will, even if you only write to yourself, there's still going to be an audience of people who find what you say useful.
Right. Would you say that people that don't know how to write, they also don't know how to think?
No, definitely
no.
Not. There's some.
You wouldn't equate those two.
I mean, like, so someone's probably had the experience where they worked with a professor who is like a star in their field and could not teach the class, right? Is that just because they just have a genetic deficiency in explaining things, or because they just haven't trained it enough? Who knows? It doesn't really matter. But like could an artist who produces really good work tell you how they did it? Like, no, I just kind of felt it. And it came out that way. Or someone who's, when people play the piano, you can play all the correct notes, but it doesn't sound the same if the emotion's there or not, right? How are they able to make sad music actually sound sad versus just playing minor notes or something like that, right? Or set the crescendo at the correct pace. You can't really turn that into a formula and say, hey, if you follow this process, your music is going to sound like mine. They have an intuitive understanding, and I don't know that can be verbalized to a certain degree. Or if you're cooking, like, oh, it just looks right, I think it's time to flip the burger or something like that. Could I tell you? No, it's just I just intuitively know that when the meat turns this color, you flip it over. So that's actually a very funny experience. When my grandmother-in-law, she makes these great recipes, and some of my relatives were trying to learn it, and it's like, okay, but how much salt do you put in there? Just put enough salt. Oh, what do you mean enough salt? Can you give me a measure? No. I just put enough. Well, obviously she knows how to cook and make it taste good, right? But she's not able to articulate like even how much salt you're supposed to put in there. So I think the ability to articulate things and actually understanding the subject are not very closely coupled together.
Right. I mean, from my personal experience, if I'm talking with people that write well, they usually, I mean, at least the impression is that they have very, very good thought process, that they understand something very well, and they have good takeaways, good conclusions on the topic. That's at least my personal
for sure.
experience.
I mean, all else being equal, being able to write is going to make you better in general, right? Because then you can, there's things that sound good in your head until you say them. Well, writing is that over and over again. Then you realize which thought processes in your head aren't any good. But I do think, some people also may probably lean more towards verbal thinking, and other people maybe lean towards nonverbal thinking that may have something to do with it, although that's not my area of expertise, so I can't comment on it beyond that. But yeah, for sure. I mean, like if someone is able to tell you something like, hey, this is the code you should write, this is the outcome you're going to get, then obviously they can't write that unless they actually know what they're talking about, right? But if someone can produce the code but not able to explain it, then it's still quite possible that they understand it quite well, but they're just not, they just really haven't practiced turning intuition into a verbal encoding.
Right. And also there's probably a difference between technical writing and when I'm talking about writing, I'm actually thinking about some of these influencers on Twitter that have hundreds of thousands of followers, and they really know how to describe some behavior of, they really know how to explain something in a few sentences.
Yes.
So they probably also understand the human psychology behind some project or some movement or some foundation or whatever,
so for
better
those,
than others.
So for those influencers, I can tell you what they're doing. They know how to say something that's relevant, right? That's so what is everybody emotional about at this time, and they know how to be succinct about it. Because if you don't hook people right, if you don't condense your things right away, people are just going to scroll away. And then they're conscious of why somebody, in relation to the relevance thing, they're conscious of why somebody should care about it. So if you master those three components, then you can approximate their writings pretty well, I would say. You have to know it's relevant, you have to be succinct, and you have to engage with you have to engage with the emotions. So if you have those three components down, then that particular kind of skill set will produce good influencer writing. Probably not good technical writing, but with technical writing, succinctness matters, but sequence of ideas is extremely important, which in an influencer writing, you can just write a bullet-pointed list and talk about things in whatever sequence you want to. But sequencing is super important, and technical writing can make or break things, and there's other aspects. But so the different dimensions of strength in writing will make you stronger in some fields of writing versus others.
Right. It definitely has some differences. Okay, let's switch to a slightly different topic now, and that is auditing and business. A lot of readers of RareSkills are auditors, and you're also well known in the auditing space. What in your what do you think is the best way to try to scale an auditing business? You've wrote a lot about scaling. You're quoting some advice from Alex Hormozy. Do you think the best way, I mean, I'm just giving my opinions, is actually focusing on high-paying clients, top-tier projects, since these projects can mostly spend decent amount of money on security?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. The way I like to think about it is, these big projects for them, like $50,000 is nothing. So it's easy to convince people to spend money that they consider to be nothing. But $50,000 is a lot to a small company. So yeah, for sure, you should be focusing on big people just because it's easier for them to be writing bigger checks. So $50,000 is $50,000 when you're on the receiving end, but on the person who's paying it, they have very different psychology around it. But you can't just show up to a major company with no background and say, hey, I want to work for you, right? You need to work your way there. So scaling up it doesn't always mean like, oh, my revenue's growing. Scaling up can be, I'm positioning myself to fry really, really, really big fish. So I think that's actually made all the difference in the world for us in terms of who we're able to partner with, like from an education and content standpoint, because if we tried to partner with them 2 years ago, they would barely know who we are and whatnot. But we've worked our way towards proving that we're a serious organization who takes our work seriously and really cares about doing the right thing. So that's so you definitely, I think once you're at that point, then life just gets so much easier. I mean, just think about like Toyota as a brand, right? They charge a lot more for the same car versus other things in the same category. Why? Because they have a reputation for being reliable. So if I think that's the most important aspect in scaling up, because once you have, like, a lot of auditors are very confused, like, why are these companies able to charge so much more than I can for the same service? It's because of reputation and brand, right? So somebody has to explain to their boss why they spent that money, and if they spent it on someone the boss doesn't know about, then they're going to have a harder time getting a sign off on that. So which sounds unfair, and it probably is, but that's just how things work. But in terms of like managing, okay, now I have more people working for me. How do I manage them better? Moving up the management, I have experience from this in Yahoo, because I was the youngest engineering manager there at the time. It's going from a tech lead to a manager of managers. It just really breaks your brain each time you do it. And even you may think, oh, like working in a big tech company is easy. Well, if your goal is to move up that thing, man, you have so much learning and unlearning to do each time you step up that thing, because you have to learn a completely different dimension of politics and psychology and what kind of risks are acceptable to take and what not. Which is why a lot of companies don't get from 1 million to 10 million, and even from 10 million to 100 million, because then you have to go through that process again, which is extremely hard. So, like I had to, like, as a very technical person, I initially had a very hard time letting go of control over the technical thing, because I was worried that I would do it better than most people. And then everybody goes through that phase. Okay, great. That's only level 1, dude. Now you have to go through that again when you have managers of managers. So there's a reason that such scaling is uncommon, because it's extremely hard to let go of things and build good systems, because you're not trained in that.
Right. It's that kind of advice. It may sound like cliche, but yeah, you do have to reinvent yourself as you're growing, as you're moving and trying to scale the company.
I mean, there's just so many battles to fight. Like, how do you scale? Well, if you even have the luxury of being able to hire that many people, right? Which means you need to be a good salesperson if you're bringing in a lot of business. But it can't just be you being a smooth talker. You need to actually have a reputation, because you're selling to very smart people here, right? So they're just not going to, oh, you talk really good, therefore I'm going to buy from you. You actually need to have a track record, right? So having, and then the people working for you need to like you. So otherwise your scale, it doesn't matter if you're scaling if people are leaving the company all the time. So there's just so many things that you have to get right. And it's just uncommon to be able to be good at all of those, which is why I think scaling is so hard. And then there's factors beyond your control. What if we go through a crypto downturn? Then you can be doing everything right.
Right. It's a battle for the long term. That's why entrepreneurs usually go through a long period until they hit that jackpot. It even can be as long as, 15, 20 years, where you're trying with a few different businesses just to finally score big in one of these.
But I should say it also depends on the industry too, right? Because scaling a service business is challenging. But if a SaaS business is challenging to find one that is actually scalable and a lot of people will buy. But once you scale, it's very easy, right? And then you might not even have to hire that big of a team. But like a service business is easy to start because people actually need to hire auditors. People actually need documentation. So you do need actual service business. But then now you have to orchestrate a bunch of humans, assuming you're even getting a lot of sales to begin with. And that's difficult. So every kind of company is going to have its own scaling challenges.
Right. It obviously depends on the type of the business. Okay, let's kind of wind down. At this point, I only have two questions left, which are chill questions. So
let's do it.
Give me a book, TV series, or movie that you recommend to everyone.
High Output Management by, I think, Andy Grove is the name of it, is a really, really good book. It's well written, and it's unbelievable how information dense writing can be when you read that. Even if you're not really that into management, I'm just astonished at how much he can simplify things. It's one of the best writings I've read. Okay, so high output management.
Yep. Okay, cool. Any movie, any TV series, or something kind of lighter, not like management, business, and so on.
I I don't know. The original Matrix series I was really entertained by. I bet everyone's seen that. Do I have like a unusable movie? Okay, if you're if you're somehow able to like get in, if you can get it on Netflix because it's an Indonesian movie, check Toko Sebelah. So it's the translation is looking at the store next door. It's very funny. So if you just want to see something that like, hey, I want to watch a movie that none of my friends have ever watched and I want to laugh, even if you don't understand Indonesian, it's extremely funny. I don't, and they're dropping Western references in there, so a Westerner can follow it. So if you want a random recommendation for, I don't. You might have to VPN to get to be able to find it because the movies are recommended differently by where you are. But yeah, if you want a lighthearted recommendation, I can recommend that.
Okay, time to tell my wife we're watching an Indonesian movie on Saturday evening.
Yeah, just a random thing that's funny.
Yeah, cool. Definitely. I actually love to watch. I'm from Europe. I love to watch European movies, but also movies from other countries. We're kind of flooded with American, culture and American movies, so it's always refreshing to watch something different.
Oh, for sure. That's one of my favorite parts about going on planes is I get to be exposed to some movie from from another country I would never otherwise get the opportunity to see. Yeah,
definitely. Okay, so last question is actually a set of 2 choice questions. I'm just going to give you 2 options, and you need to choose one.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Let's do it.
Okay. Bitcoin or Ethereum?
Bitcoin.
Okay. Beer or wine?
Scotch.
Scotch.
Yeah, it's if I had to pick though, it would be beer.
Beer. Okay. Mountains or the beach?
Mountains.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Cardano or XRP?
XRP.
Okay. Espresso or coffee with milk?
Espresso.
Okay. I'm surprised how many people actually drink espresso. I thought everyone is coffee with milk. I don't know. It's so typical in my country. So, work from home or work from the office?
Office. Easy choice.
You do have office in Indonesia or?
Yeah, I do. I share an office with other companies because I don't need one to myself. But if I'd rather not work in the home. It just feels weird for me to be in the same place all the time. I mean, I will if I have to, right? But if I don't, if I would rather just go to a cafe if for some reason I can't go to the office. Right.
And final question: reading or listening? So it's kind of listening a podcast, listening a speaker, or just reading materials.
Oh man, that's a tough one. Because it would depend on what the subject is. But realistically, I spend more time of my day reading, so I'll pick that.
You go with reading. Okay.
Yeah, but that's a hard question. Like the Ethereum and Bitcoin one.
Yeah. Okay, Jeffrey. This was a very pleasant talk. Thanks for taking your time. If you have some final words, where can people find you? And if you want to share something around RareSkills or any of your other companies, now is the time.
Oh, sure. Yeah, thanks. Well, you can best way to find me is on Twitter. So JEYFFRE. That's my handle. Feel free to DM me if you have something. Yeah, RareSkills. If you want to learn stuff about DK and DeFi, our materials free. Just go to rareskills.io/blog. If you're hiring someone, raretalent.xyz. So a lot of our readers come through and they fill out job form if they're looking for a job. So we have quite a pool of candidates to connect you to if that's something that would interest you. If you're looking to train people on your team, we offer coding training for that. If you're specifically looking for learning Rust as a language, rarecode.ai is what we is I think a very good offering, because we have over 500 Rust problems to work through that are sequenced in a very logical fashion with AI to help you along the way. Although if the Rust bootcamp would be more appropriate if you're looking to hack smart contracts. So those are or if you're looking for documentation for your for any technology that you're building, that's helping people with documentation is another service that we offer. So that's what I do in a nutshell.
Yeah. Thanks, Jeffrey.
Thank you.